Oh, that's not what I want. So there's supposed to be a hotkey to be able to shift tabs. The hotkey ain't working for me, so. Alright. So this, we're going to conclude on this, obviously, which is the GP2 failing the Warriors physical. So obviously it puts the the trade in jeopardy, the Jade in trepardy. Because again, you know, when players fail physicals, usually the league forces a invalidation of a trade, and so everybody just keeps the players and the picks that they were trading. So all the teams, whatever your team or we were trading, we just maintained them as if we never made the trade in the first place. Everybody is right back where they were before it. Usually the league will void these kinds of trades because of it. But yeah, the fact that Gary failed his physical like that, and this entire trade is literally may get canceled exclusively due to our team's own mismanagement and incompetence. Can I reiterate how right I am that we need to fucking blow the entire team up, literally from ownership all the way down, including through trainers, please? Rather than having our heads up our asses, pretending that, no, that's not true. It's not as you're being dramatic. Am I? Am I really? We were making him play because our training staff, medical staff, told him he was fine. And he was healthy. As soon as we trade him, their training staff says, actually, he has a core injury that would probably have him sidelined for a few months. Like, really? It's agonizing, dude. It's unacceptable. The mismanagement and misrunning of this team is beyond belief. It just keeps getting worse. I swear. It just keeps getting worse. Every domino keeps not even falling. The dominoes aren't falling and knocking each other over. They're imploding in their own spots, standing still. That's how much of an implosion this team is doing. Like, I alluded to this earlier, but I legitimately mean this when I say this. I swear the ownership of this team, and that's the front office of this team, is intentionally trying, for some reason, to absolutely implode the value of this franchise and implode its reputation. Like, they're trying to literally kill the franchise. And though I hate to admit it, but about the only time that tends to happen is relatively normal. Or rather, I should say, let me backtrack and try to do that again. I'm semi-distracted. So, okay. The last time that anything like this transpired with the franchise was the Sonics. And we all saw how that went down. And we know that Adam Silver, aka Adam, the league expanding would dilute the talent pool too much, Silver, still to this day, despite this season proving the complete opposite, still demanding he refuses to fucking expand or consider it legitimately anytime soon within the next few seasons because it would dilute the talent pool too much. Still doing that, meaning that it could actually be a similar kind of conspiracy and plan and plot that the ownership of the Sonics had with Glade Bennett and the current ownership group of OKC and the then commissioner Sternzilla, David Stern. It could be something similar to that. And you have to keep this in mind. The lease on the Rose Quarter, and that's the RG. I will keep calling it the RG. I don't care if it's branded as the Moda Center. It's the RG, the Rose Garden. The lease on the property is set to come up here within the next year or two. So that's something really important to keep in mind. Especially when considering possibilities like this. This could be why. If he's refusing to expand the league, Seattle's demanding a team. And this team is intentionally trying to implode its value and implode the trust in the fan base and piss everybody off here, or at least enough of the majority off, and be mismanaged well enough that they are forced to sell the team. They might intentionally be trying to sell it to somebody who would move it to Seattle. So then Seattle gets their team, but it's actually the Blazers. And it would technically work better than the move to, say, the OKC because of the fact that it's a fellow Northwest team. We have a lot of the same fan base. We have a lot of the same shared heritage and history in the NBA and in sports. And we have a lot of the same passion, the same kind of fan bases even. And so we have the I-5 rivalry. So as a result, because of all that shared everything, they probably think that they'd be able to get away with it easier and better with a lot less backlash if they did this with the Blazers and move that to Seattle than the way that they did it with moving Seattle to OKC. It's something to keep in mind. This could actively be happening with the Blazers, especially considering there is intent from not only Jody Allen, but even Adam Silver. You got to remember, you can watch it on YouTube. There's the clip there. He even straight up said, while Phil Knight and that other guy, who I think is partial owner of the Oakland A's or something like that, or no, maybe it's the Padres, said that or maybe it's the Chargers. I can't remember. It's like something like that. And down in SoCal, is something associated at least at one point with San Diego history and Major League Sports. It's either the Chargers or the Padres, I think. Or is it the Galaxy? God damn! It's one of those Major League SoCal teams. That he's in partnership with. Their bids when they were always in the news and they were bidding and trying to get Jody Allen to accept their offer for sale of the team this last offseason. Lose last offseason. When all that was going on, Adam Silver came out publicly in a big interview and said, yes, the Blazers absolutely need to sell that team. In other words, even the fucking president of the United States version of the government of the National Basketball Association, aka the president version of that is the commissioner. The commissioner is Adam Silver. Adam Silver himself publicly straight up stated, and you could hear it and see it in his body language, in his voice, he's annoyed with this team. He wants this team to be sold. So he straight up is conveying that in his body language as he's literally straight up saying they need to sell the team soon. And he expects them to. All of that kind of does click together, doesn't it? It's not a good sign when even the lead of the NBA himself is straight up noting and saying to you that, yeah, I want that team sold. I don't like what they're doing with that team, and it needs to be in new hands. That is not a good sign. And they probably recognize how badly this team's being mismanaged. Either that, or he's doing like he's the protege of, right? Sternzilla. He may actually be doing something like Sternzilla did with Clay Bennett and the Starfucks founder and CEO that owned the Sonics at the time and conspired to move them. Damage reputation, cause a ton of issues intentionally with the fan base and even local business / government to come up with the excuse to move. Which brings me to my next thing. Remember what that all started with. Was a lease on Key Arena came up. And immediately David Stern came in and relentlessly just harassed the living shit out of not just the Sonics themselves, but out of the taxpayers in the entire Sound region and the state of Washington government, the county governments, and the city governments, non-stop relentlessly harassed them and made the biggest international level headline to-do non-stop about how they had to build a new arena and there was no other way they'd accept it. And that him and the Starfox CEO thus caused a big stink about it too and made it international headlines because they were demanding that taxpayers had to pay for it in full and they would not put a penny towards it themselves, despite being billionaires, even at the time, and wouldn't have it. And so that's what led to that happening. Now, Key Arena was really small. Obviously, the Rose Garden is not. And also, though they may not have the capacity problem, the age is coming up. I think it was older at the time. I'm not 100% sure. It may have been about 30, but I think it was a bit older because I think that Key Arena may have been originally built for the World's Fair of 1960. I think it was literally 1960 flat. It might have been. It was 1960 something. That's why the Space Needle was built. Was for the World's Fair. I'm pretty sure the Key Arena may have originally been built then, which means it was built sometime in the beginning, like turn between 50s and 60s. And if I am correct about that, then obviously it was a lot older even then. But what is that, like 50 years old? But then again, even back then, they would still get on the ass and never stop of teams that reach 30 years of age on their arena. Like once it hits 30, they're on them nonstop, and they have to build a new arena almost every time. They're like, yeah, you could completely upgrade and renovate the fuck out of it, or you could build a new one. And they prefer always to have a brand new one built. So keeping that in mind, remember what I said, how I got into this, the lease on the Rose Quarter, and thus the Rose Garden, is almost up. It's literally on the brink of expiring. There is no new lease arrangement for the property with the team. And on top of that, again, it is a 30-year-old arena right now. So as a result, I wouldn't doubt that the league's going to start harassing them for that reason too, and being like, you need to build a new arena, or you need to completely overhaul it again. Because, I mean, like, to be fair, I feel like that the arena, though it's fine in its current state, I feel like it really would be best for fan experience if they did actually do renovations and upgrade it properly, like really well, including specifically the experience in the actual bowl, you know, where you actually watch the games. Because I just feel like the stat locations are shit. They're too small. I think there's only one or two, and it's in like the weirdest locations in corners. And then on top of that, we have one of the smallest jumbotrons in the entire league, and now have for what, like 4 or 5 seasons. It's one of the smallest and oldest jumbotrons. Yeah, it's not 100% necessary, but like it's better to not have to like worry about, God knows, maybe like 25-30% of your entire fan base having a less than, you know, great experience because of the fact that they can't really see the court because they're visually impaired enough. But because of that, how small it is, they can't really see the Jumbotron either. It just isn't right to me. I feel like once we had the advancement of tech for a long enough time, and these people are fucking billionaires that own these teams, they should have fucking put these new Jumbotrons in with the new TVs and tech. Like actual Jumbotrons, not like these tiny fucking Minecraft blocks off of a stilt, which is what we have. You know, it's like the least you could do is just get a fucking bigger Jumbotron, you know, bigger screens, and maybe have a more innovative one that has wrap, so that way it's not just a square, you know, rectangle square, and then the corners are screwed, so anybody's in the corners, they can't really see shit. Or even stupider, there is some arenas who do this, they put another screen over the corners of the other 2 screens, so as a result, each corner has a fucking screen, and now it's blocking part of the other screens. Like, just, why not just wrap it around? There's a good handful of places in the world that have wrap-around Jumbotrons, and they're fantastic. Just wrap it around. Then you don't even have to have, like, multiple video feeds for each thing, or mirror the video feed. You can just have it all on one screen that wraps around. Or whatever, you know, I guess technically you would have to not wrap it around, because otherwise you wouldn't see everything. But you know what I mean. It would be something along those lines. It's very feasible. They should do that. I know that a lot of people have bitched at me when I've said that are Blazers fans, because they're like, but then they have to jack up ticket prices. They redid the concessions. That was the main thing they did. They redid concessions slightly and remodeled those, which we're not really able to notice because it's literally the concessions isn't behind the fucking countertop that you go up to order. They redid all of that stuff. They remodeled that. And that was the main reason why they jacked up prices on us. But the other reason why is because they said, oh, well, we're hemorrhaging funds, and there's just simply, we're not charging enough. It's too low of a price for nosebleeds. But you gotta go from $15 to $45 for a fucking nosebleed. In other words, they did it, whether they did any kind of change like that or not, they would have done it anyway. That was blatant. Chris McGowan at the time, who was at the time our CFO, that had just been freshly hired, that was the first fucking thing he did was that. And then immediately thereafter, he got the contract with Moda, which almost itself imploded on its face within a few years, because Moda actually almost went fucking bankrupt. That was so funny, because it was literally on the brink of bankruptcy. And I'm like, I almost hoped it did go bankrupt. Because if it did and imploded on itself as a company, it would have been funny as fuck to see, Paul Allen and the owner, the owner and Chris McGowan, having fits trying to figure out how the fuck to explain it and be like, well, it's fine. It was a great sponsor. It wasn't really that risky. It's like, it went bankrupt. Yeah, it was risky, obviously. I mean, even Oregonians, a lot of us didn't even hear about Moda before. We were like, what the fuck is Moda Health? Oh, man. That was a fucker cluck. As you can tell, I can keep going on forever. But, so yeah, it could use some updating, but it doesn't need to be replaced. But I can see how the league would do that. So again, the long story short in this ramble, the point is I could technically see them potentially, that could be actually what they're trying to do, the Blazers franchise. They could be intentionally trying to implode value and cause issues with the fan base and everyone else, just like the Star Fox CEO that was the owner of the Sonics at the time did with Clay Bennett and Sternzilla. Adam Silver could be in on it, just like Sternzilla was at the time. And they could be trying something like that. And if they are, just watch for them to move to Seattle, because I just about guarantee that's what they're going to do. That said, let's touch on expansion, even though it's not the Blazers, 100% Blazers related. It's only slightly related to this whole conspiracy, but that could be true. Obviously, that's why I mention it. It bears mentioning because of that. I want to note that the whole expansion narrative that Adam Silver has is absolute horseshit. It's fucking horseshit, Angel, and you know it. And don't you fucking tell me it's the wrong sport. Fuck you. It's always relevant. It's fucking horseshit, Angel, and you know it. And I fucking hate baseball. Anyway. So on that front, this entire season so far, there have been 13 teams, 12 to 13 teams in the West alone, Western Conference alone, that have and are still, by the way, in contention for a actual proper, pretty high-ranked playoff seed. Even right now, there is, I believe, 12 teams in the West out of the 15 that are still able to contend for as high as the 6th seed in the West. And if you're a 8th, 9th seed, but you're 3 wins away from being able to tie for the 3rd seed, and you have under 30 games left in the season to the playoffs, and you're one of 12 teams within shot of a 6th or 5th seed in the playoffs out of 15, you can't fucking claim that expanding the league would dilute the talent pool. Especially considering, look at the Eastern Conference. Even still, right now, there is at least 10 teams that can contend for at highest a 6th seed. As we speak, under 30 games left in the season for all of them. So in other words, almost every single team in the entire league is able to contend still well over halfway through the season. We're actually about 3/4 of the way through the season now. Well, I guess it's 2/3. We're 2/3 of the way through the season now. So 66.6% of the way through the season now, right? All of us are. Every team. And you have, what is that? That would be, yeah, basically somewhere between 21 and 25 teams of the 30 teams in the league. 21 and 25 of the 30 teams in the league are all technically directly contending with each other for an actual playoff seed. Not a play-in, but a playoff seed. As we speak, 2/3 of the way through the season. Imagine that. It's absolutely absurd and ridiculous. And Adam Silver, to this day, is still saying if he expanded even by 2 teams, it would dilute the talent pool too much of the league and kill parity. You have too much parity this season. That's why we're still 2/3 of the way through the season, and 20 plus teams out of the 30 are actually genuinely still fighting to contend for an actual true playoff berth, not a play-in. And they're easily able to get it, actually, because they're so close together and win losses. Think about that. You know you're a pathological liar and a bullshitter when you're an Adam Silver, and this is what you're saying as we all can see the results of the season so far. This will be the most ridiculously win-heavy season, I think, probably of all time. To where if you have not only half of the league, but actually well over half the league, literally in direct contention for a proper, like, middle-of-the-pack playoff seed, because they're all so close together. The bottom to the top is so fucking close together in record through the entire season. You can't take a word from that person seriously, because they are totally fucking lying. So, if anything, I think that everybody across the board around the world needs to start screaming at Adam Silver to say, shove your fucking lies up your ass and expand. And I'm not talking 2, I'm talking 4 at least, because you can handle it, clearly. And then look at this draft and look at the next 2 or 3. They're pretty fucking deep. It's only going to get more intensively hyper competitive. It's ridiculous. And it actually hurts player growth and performance, by the way, when this is the case. Because already this season's proof how it's hurting pretty much every team's records, and thus their ability to compete. It's crazy. It's way too contentious. And instead of dilution, it's the opposite right now. It needs to be balanced out. So actually, even just adding 2 new teams probably would just about balance it out, but probably only for a couple of seasons at most. Then you probably have to add another 2. That's how crazy it's getting. I just wanted it out there for perspective's sake, especially considering it's only related to the conspiracy part about it potentially being a duplicate here in Portland of what the league did with the Sonics. And us potentially, well, that being potentially the intention is they might be doing the same thing they did with the Sonics to OKC, with us moving from Portland to Seattle. I digress. That's the end of my rant. I may not even actually edit this. I may just literally throw the fucking face cam up and not even do minimal editing. Just be like, fuck it. Here we go. There you go.